Thank you. Well, it's not difficult to get the mood of this room this afternoon. The answer to the question is very simple. The glass is half empty. It's sombre in here, and that's because you know in your hearts that something fundamentally changed at the European Council last week. It can be summed up in a word: Italy. A founder member of the European Union, uncritical for decades of the process of European integration, and now, as a result of the last general election, an Italian Prime Minister threatening to veto the entire proceedings unless he was given something on migration. But how to satisfy the Italians and to save the ever more beleaguered Mrs. Merkel? That was the question. And traditionally, you would have looked for a European answer, but there wasn't one. So you came up with a very weak formula, talking on a voluntary basis about regional distribution centres. The deal, which everybody said would hold, of course, had fallen to pieces within the space of a few hours. I have to say, what you saw was the rebirth of the nation state, and that is the direction. That is what Brexit, that is what Trump, that is what the Italian elections are all about. And I wonder whether the Verhofstadts of this world recognise this massive shift. And it isn't just a one-off, it's a trend. People want to do things at a national level. Now, where I do sympathise with everything the speakers have said is in their criticism of the British government, who 2 years on have a summit this Friday to decide exactly what our Brexit policy is. So, yeah, we've not exactly made life easy for you, but then nor have you for us, by continually saying that Mr. Varadkar in Dublin can veto the entire deal. I would suggest Mr. Tusk wasn't necessarily particularly helpful either. But one area in which you do agree, but I wonder for how long, is you talked about increasing military cooperation, Mr. Tusk, being discussed at that council meeting last week. And this, when earlier today we heard from Mr. Weber from the CDU that he wants foreign policy to be decided without veto. Just a quick look ahead to next week. Mr. Trump will be at that NATO summit next week. You appear to be hell-bent on pushing for your European army, hell-bent for a foreign policy without veto, and hell-bent to be on a direct collision course with President Trump and with NATO. You can't have a European army and NATO existing side by side. And maybe your next big challenge is European citizens will need to work out who do they best feel protected by, a European army or America and NATO. I think I know what the decision of the people would be. Next week, we may well find out.